You brought up a concept in here, the idea that a character you designed became a character in Cyberpunk Red. Is that common? Are a lot of these characters that, a lot of people have come to this game because of the video game coming out. So they've learned about Johnny Silverhand or Morgan, a number of these different characters. Did those characters originate as roleplay characters in your own campaigns and eventually became characters in the actual books? How did that start?
So that's a lot more the case for Red. Because we have a whole section in Red about, key figures in Night City, because we really wanted to flesh out Night City and make it, Night City, we always say, is another character in Cyberpunk. As far as the old key characters from 2013 and 2020, most people think that Morgan Blackhand, the world's greatest solo, is Mike's personal character, but he actually isn't. He is a character that Mike really loves and has put a lot of work and thought into, but Mike has always said that his personal character is the Ripperjack, I believe, who shows up throughout 2020 in like sidebars and stuff.
That's where the rules come in, right?
Yeah. So most of the key characters, with the exception of like Spider Murphy, was Lisa's personal character. But most of the characters were like created for the setting, and in a lot of places, they were specifically created to show off different factions or factors of the city.
So when it comes, sorry, go ahead. Keep going.
Well, Johnny, for instance, was created, to my understanding, Johnny was created for Never Fade Away, and Never Fade Away was created to give people a feeling of what Cyberpunk was. So it was really like almost this like example character that took on a life of their own. Cool.
So let's talk about Cyberpunk Red then. The characters that show up in Cyberpunk Red, were all of them characters that came about through your own role playing, or were some of them just designed as characters you would write into a story just for Red?
It's an interesting mix. We have some characters who are old characters from our games. Hornet is one of them. His bodyguard Fox is another one. That was actually me and Lisa's characters in a Cyberpunk game we were in a while ago. There are, I think, 3 characters in the sort of section about people in Night City who are characters from other people that we know from their Cyberpunk games. And then there's a sort of mix of characters that we put in, like, to show specific things. My favorite example is actually 2 characters. We have one character called Woodchipper, who was created by one of our designers, James Hutt, who is this huge, very cybered up. She's got an internal linear frame, so she's like huge and able to flip cars and stuff. This very cybered up nomad who lives on the outskirts of the city, and she has a garage where she basically settles disputes between different people, especially among nomads. So we had her in there as just this cool character that you could run across, or maybe get jobs from, or that you could wind up encountering if you were in the outskirts of Night City and something was starting to go really, really sideways, as it were. But then there's also the other side of that is a netrunner named Recluse, who is this like super enigmatic netrunner. Nobody really knows their background. All they know is that they're this like master hacker who lives in a heavily fortified abandoned mini mall in the ruins of old Japantown. So they're really designed as like this. They could be a major antagonist if you have like a netrunner in your party. They could even be like a mentor figure, or they could just be like, you do a job for a corp or something, and that corp gets, like a chip, for instance, and they need to get into the chip, but the chip's, heavily guarded or something of the like. So you need to go to Recluse to like get their help in this, and that can lead to betrayal, or it can lead to, making friends or whatever. So we wanted to get a mix of like well-loved characters from us and people around us, and also new characters that really like fit in a very specific place in the world, as well as moving forward old characters. like the Fixer Fireman, who was in 2020 and still is in Red. He's basically this ex-veteran fixer who became the best known and most powerful weapons dealer in Night City.
Nice.
So we get to kind of talk about what happened to him. We get to kind of talk about where he is after the Fourth Corporate War and during the time of the Red.
Yeah. Play out the character development a little bit more. But that's really cool, because I would imagine that by having characters that have been role played, that you've already kind of fleshed them out a lot, they've been lived in a little bit. And so by the time they end up in the actual pages of the books, you know who they are. You've walked around in their shoes, That's a really neat way to work that stuff in. I think that's really, really cool.